Straight ahead on Law and Crime Daily. Alec Baldwin speaks out on camera for the first time since the fatal Rust movie shooting. Law and Crime's Anjanette Levy reports live about what the actor had to say. And entering day 10 of jury selection in Georgia for the trial in the death of Ahmaud Arbery. Brian Buckmeyer is live on the ground with the latest for this high-profile case. Plus, jury selection begins in Wisconsin for the accused Kenosha shooter, Kyle Rittenhouse. More on what to expect from the trial that is soon to come. And later,
try to calm down, Mr.
I'm calm.
An accused murderer takes the stand in his second murder trial. More inside the heated Florida courtroom coming up on Law and Crime Daily, covering court cases from coast to coast. Welcome to Law and Crime Daily. I'm Allison Hall, in for Brian Buckmeyer, who's covering the death of the Ahmaud Arbery trial. Co-host Terry Austin is also with me. For the first time, Alec Baldwin is talking about the shooting on the set of the movie Rust that killed a cinematographer. Law and Crime's Anjanette Levy is here with what Baldwin and the film's armorer are saying. Anjanette?
Allison, Alec Baldwin and his wife Hilarious pulled over on the side of a road in Vermont to speak with a reporter who was following them. Baldwin told Backgrid that cinematographer Helena Hutchins was his friend.
Alec Baldwin, seen here in much happier times, told Backgrid over the weekend that him shooting and killing cinematographer Helena Hutchins was a, quote, 1 in a trillion event. Baldwin was rehearsing a cross draw last month on the set of Rust when he pointed the gun at the camera and fired, killing Hutchins and wounding director Joel Souza. Baldwin told Backgrid the crew was a well-oiled machine, and then this happened. He also said of Hutchinson's husband, he is in shock. He has a 9-year-old son. We are in constant contact with him because we are very worried about his family and his kid. Baldwin said he was ordered by the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office to not discuss the incident. Questions have been raised about the film's armorer, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, and her level of experience, and Assistant Director Dave Halls, who handed the gun to Baldwin and told him it was safe. Gutierrez-Reed's attorneys issued a statement saying she has no idea how live ammunition made it on the set. They went on to say, quote, Hannah and the prop master gained control over the guns, and she never witnessed anyone shoot live rounds with these guns, and nor would she permit that. Hannah was hired on 2 positions on this film, which made it extremely difficult to focus on her job as an armorer. Meanwhile, Baldwin's wife, Hilaria, posted this photo on Instagram with the caption, I love you, and I'm here.
And the investigation into this shooting is ongoing. Santa Fe County Sheriff says it's way too early to determine whether or not charges will be filed against anyone, and he cautioned against people calling this an accident. He says this is a criminal investigation. Allison?
Thank you, Anjanette. We're joined now by co-host Terry Austin and criminal defense attorney Sue-Ann Robinson. Sue-Ann, let's start with you. In last week's press conference, the Santa Fe District Attorney told reporters charges are still on the table for anyone involved in the incident. What is the likelihood we will see criminal charges here, especially for Baldwin himself?
It's really, I don't think it's likely that Alec Baldwin will face criminal charges. But again, it depends on what's revealed in this investigation in terms of how live rounds got on the set. Was there someone else that brought the live rounds? And what exactly happened? I mean, the more information we get out, the more we can kind of gauge what's the likelihood of criminal charges. But I certainly think there's going to be something done with respect to the armor, with respect to the AD, for sure. But Alec, at this time, based on the story that he said and what we know about what happened so far, it would be extremely unlikely.
And Terry, Baldwin made several claims during his statement to the press on Saturday. Could any of those statements impact potential litigation?
I think it's not going to impact the criminal case, but I think it could have some impact on a potential civil case if one is brought for either wrongful death or some negligence. And I think that his comment that these things happen. They're incidental incidents, and we had a very well-oiled crew. We know already, based on some of the reports, that things were not running that well. And so it seems as though this was protecting himself and protecting him from exposure as a producer. So very gratuitous.
And Anjanette, can you tell us about the new information that just came out about those moments leading up to the shooting?
Well, Allison, the LA Times reported on Monday that they had spoken with a number of people who were on the set. They also reviewed text messages, and they recalled to the LA Times how Alec Balwin was rehearsing that scene, and he pulled the gun out of his holster and said, "So I guess I'm going to take this out, pull it, and go bang." That is when the gun went off. He pointed it toward the camera, as we've been reporting. Hutchins then fell backwards, according to the LA Times report, and said, "No, that was no good. That was no good at all." She later died that evening. Allison.
Thank you so much, Anjanette, and to all of you for your thoughts on this. In other top legal news, celebrity rapper Fetty Wap pleads not guilty to charges of trafficking on Friday. Fetty Wap, whose legal name is Willie Jr. Maxwell II, was arrested Thursday night by the FBI on federal drug charges. Just before he was scheduled to appear at a concert in Long Island, the Grammy-nominated star was arraigned with 5 of his co-defendants. Officials said that in 2019, the group distributed more than 100 kilograms of cocaine, heroin, fentanyl, and crack from Long Island to New Jersey. Prosecutors described it as a, quote, multi-million-dollar bi-coastal drug distribution organization. If convicted, the minimum sentence would be 10 years in prison. The maximum could send him to prison for life. Still ahead on Law&Crime Daily, the accused Kenosha shooter is about to stand trial, but not before the jury is seated. More on jury selection out of Wisconsin. But first, day 10 of jury selection in the trial for the death of Ahmaud Arbery. Our very own Brian Buckmeyer is live with the latest out of Georgia.
It was the video that shocked the nation. An unarmed black jogger, 25-year-old Ahmaud Arbery, gunned down in broad daylight. The 3-man charge will now stand trial. For live gavel-to-gavel coverage of the trial, subscribe to Law&Crime on YouTubeTV today.
Welcome back to Law&Crime Daily. We look now to Georgia, where we continue on to day 10 of jury selection in the trial for the death of Ahmaud Arbery. Gregory and Travis McMichael and William Roddy Bryan face charges of malice murder, felony murder, and aggravated assault in the shooting of the 25-year-old jogger. In February 2020, prosecutors say father and son duo Gregory and Travis McMichaels tailed Arbery in a pickup truck as he was out for a run near his home in Georgia. Travis McMichael opened fire and killed Arbery, claiming self-defense. Bryan followed along in his own vehicle, recording the incident on his phone. Jury selection continues as the court tries to reach the magic number of 64, in which they will eventually choose the final jurors for the case. Live on the ground in Georgia is our very own Brian Buckmeyer, who is bringing us the latest in today's jury selection. Brian, what are the takeaways from the start of week 3 of jury selection?
So, Allison, one of the big points was that we started off, or at least we thought we started off, with 55 jurors. But from Friday, the judge had said that there was one juror who had some childcare issues that still left him with some sort of reservation or pause. This morning, he cleared that up by disqualifying that juror. And so now we are down to 54. 17 jurors came in, so we were hoping for 10 more. But a number of them were disqualified. One juror was disqualified because of a felony record, and she didn't restore her rights to vote. Another was disqualified because she was over the age of 70 and didn't want to serve, one of the statutory provisions here in Georgia. And one juror was disqualified because of a fixed opinion that the McMichaels and Bryan should be acquitted. Now, the court will continue on Election Day as well as Veterans Day, but at this point, it's just a numbers game trying to get to 64 jurors, as only a handful make it as qualified jurors each day.
And Brian, we've already seen a pretty lengthy jury selection in this case. Is there any indication a jury could be chosen early this week?
I think that is the hope and the prayer, because what we're seeing, Allison, is, as I said, 54 jurors today, so we just need 10 more. I don't think we're going to get more than 5 or 6 today. They're actually still questioning jurors later into the night. But hopefully by Wednesday afternoon, we may have a panel where we start those peremptory challenges.
And Brian, once we move on from jury selection eventually, how will the trial portion of this case go, being that we have 3 defendants here?
So it's really just everything times 3. We're expecting for there to be opening statements. In this county or this state of Georgia, you'll see the prosecution go first, and then the defense attorneys, each one of them having 3 opening statements, and the prosecution going to again opt to having a final opening statement after them. And I would expect that to happen. Then each and every witness that gets called by the prosecution, the defense would have an opportunity to cross-examine them, but they seem to be working together somewhat to streamline their questioning of jurors, at least. Hopefully they'll do the same thing for cross-examination.
Right. Thank you, Brian. Well, we'll definitely check back in with you tomorrow to see when that trial has a full jury. Coming up on Law and Crime Daily, Markeith Lloyd takes the stand in his own murder trial to explain why he opened fire at a police officer. Plus, jury selection is underway in Wisconsin for the accused Kenosha shooter, Kyle Rittenhouse. What you can expect from the trial starting later this week. Welcome back to Law and Crime Daily. Jury selection begins in the case of Wisconsin versus Kyle Rittenhouse, the accused Kenosha shooter. 18-year-old Rittenhouse faces multiple charges, including first-degree reckless homicide, intentional homicide, and attempted homicide. The charges stem from the 2020 Kenosha riots following the shooting of Jacob Blake, a black man who was shot by a white police officer. Prosecutors say a then 17-year-old Rittenhouse drove to Kenosha from Illinois and shot 3 people during the protests. Joseph Rosenbaum and Anthony Huber were shot and killed. Gage Groreitz was injured. Rittenhouse could face a life sentence without parole if convicted. Wisconsin does not have the death penalty. He has pled not guilty to the crimes. 150 potential jurors were summoned in this case. 80 were called to the Kenosha County Courthouse on Monday, with a final goal of 20 to be chosen. Judge Bruce Schroeder told the potential jurors the trial is expected to last about 2 weeks. Terry, the judge ruled that the individuals who were shot could not be called victims, but could be called rioters or looters. What are your thoughts on that ruling?
Here's what I think, Allison. I agree with the prosecution. I think it's a double standard being used here. Judge Schroeder ruled that the 3 men who were shot could be called rioters, looters, or arsonists. And when you do that, you're putting in the jury's mind that Kyle Rittenhouse had a right to shoot and to defend himself. That's exactly what the defense wants to do. But saying that the people who were shot can't be called victims definitely is putting the prosecution at a disadvantage. And the prosecutor did argue that. The judge didn't go for it. So at the end of the day, we're going to see that if the evidence supports it, they can call these people rioters and looters.
And Sue-Ann, as we mentioned, the state of Wisconsin does not have the death penalty. Had this case happened in Rittenhouse's home state of Illinois, we could have seen a death penalty if convicted. What sort of alternative could we expect to see in Wisconsin if Rittenhouse is found guilty?
I think if he's found guilty, on the highest charge, then obviously it's life without parole. If Schroeder is the sentencing judge, who knows, because he's made a couple bad calls, especially with this victim, not allowing the decedents to be called victims, but permitting them to be called looters and rioters. Because even in his explanation, he said he thinks victim is a loaded word. He thinks a person who's a victim has to be proven, has to be demonstrated. He said he's in a very small minority of judges who feel this way. But then on the other hand, he said it's fine for them to be called looters and arsonists and rioters when that hasn't been proven either. So I do agree that, you know, he's made a bad call on that for sure, and it would remain to be seen how he would handle sentencing.
Thank you, Sue Ann, and thank you, Terry. And on Capitol Hill, the Supreme Court heard nearly 3 hours worth of arguments relating to the Texas law that prevents abortions 6 weeks into pregnancy. The court declined to block this contentious law in a close 5-4 decision back in early September. The law includes no exceptions for pregnancies resulting from rape or incest, and has caused a significant increase of people leaving the state to look for abortions elsewhere. The law bars state officials from enforcing it. Therefore, it allows for private citizens to take legal action against anyone who performs the procedure or, quote, aids and abets it. The Supreme Court heard arguments on Monday from abortion providers and the Biden administration to challenge the court's previous ruling. The Biden administration argued that the federal government should be able to sue to stop the law from being enforced. Texas's Solicitor General argued that the federal government and abortion providers do not have the legal grounds to sue the state in federal court. Mark Huron, an attorney for the abortion providers, argued that the Texas law created a chilling effect by providing bounties to private citizens to enforce it. Right now, there is no deadline for the justices to act on the arguments heard Monday. When we come back, the defendant takes the stand in Florida. Can this previously convicted murderer escape charges, this time with his own testimony? More on what Markeith Lloyd had to say to the jury next. Welcome back. Convicted murderer Robert Durst is indicted in New York for the 1982 murder of his first wife. This after he is transferred to state prison in California after being hospitalized with COVID-19. The real estate heir's transfer comes 2 weeks after being sentenced to life in prison for the December 2000 murder of his best friend, Susan Berman. Last month, Durst was put on a ventilator and moved from the Los Angeles jail system to a healthcare facility in Northern California, where inmates with the most severe and long-term medical needs are treated. Durst has since been transferred back to the state prison. All of this was happening amidst arguments in New York, where prosecutors were presenting evidence to a grand jury for the case of Durst's missing wife, Kathy, who disappeared in 1982 and whose body has yet to be found. Kathy was declared legally dead in 2017. On Monday afternoon, Durst was officially indicted for the murder of Kathy Durst. And the defense rests in Florida in Markeith Lloyd's second murder trial for the death of Lieutenant Deborah Clayton. Clayton was gunned down by the defendant as she attempted to arrest him for the murder of his ex-girlfriend, Sade Dixon. Lloyd was charged and convicted of that murder. In that case, he avoided the death penalty and was sentenced to life in prison. If convicted for this crime, Lloyd could face the death penalty again. The defense rested its case in front of the jury on Monday morning, but not after the defendant took the stand in his own defense. The jury heard Lloyd's testimony on Saturday morning, where he spent nearly 3.5 hours on the stand and maintained that he was afraid for his life. He told the courtroom his version of events that led to the death of Deborah Clayton.
Why didn't you run away? I just turned my back on. She just tried to shoot me in the back. If I turn my back on again, well, I'm going to get shot in the back.
Okay. And during the shootout, were you both returning fire at each other?
Yes.
Did you feel that your life was in danger?
Yes.
Did you believe that you had to return fire to defend your life?
Yes. She falls down. When she falls down, she still continued. She's firing at me from the ground.
So even on the ground, she had her gun out?
Yes, she still was firing.
And she was still firing?
Yes.
Okay. And so what is your purpose at that point?
I was trying to hit her vest to knock her out.
Things got heated during cross-examination where the defendant was told to calm down by prosecutors.
Any sane person No, if I'm an officer and I got a leg supposed to be murdered, he's saying he'll turn himself in. If I had a news retract a lie that the news told, I'm gonna have the news retract that lie when I know it's a lie, unless I'm responsible for the lie. So that's how I knew it was the police doing it.
Try to calm down, Mr.
I'm calm. I'm forceful and aggressive, and I speak like that. So don't try to make it something that it's not. Mr. Ryan, go ahead. You can go ahead.
Yes.
Sue-Ann, this is the second time Markeith Lloyd took the stand to defend himself. Was this a strong decision by the defense? Do you think he was successful in defending himself?
Successful in what would be the question. I think he was successful in getting on the stand and getting through it without being held in contempt. He had the opportunity to basically give a presentation to the jury that's going to decide his fate. The last time he did that, he was able to avoid the death penalty. So I think a success for him here would be to avoid the death penalty, for the jurors to, even if he is convicted, to see that a human side of him, see his opportunity.
And Terry, I want to move to you here. On the stand, Lloyd claimed that he had no mental illness, yet he tried to explain why his lawyers are claiming otherwise. What do you make of that?
It's just a defense, really, Allison, as far as we're concerned. And so, we'll see what happens. The forensic psychologists who got on did a good job.
Thank you so much to both of you, and thank you for joining us here on Law and Crime Daily. We'll see you next time as we discuss justice in America.